Hello, my name is Ishaan.
Hello, my name is Pallavi.
And welcome to Politics Corner, your crash course in modern-day politics on the international, national, and local stages.
Here, we pride ourselves on a moderate and unbiased approach to politics, regardless of our political affiliations, and we hope to encourage our fellow Americans to learn and care about their government.
Today, we are revisiting a topic that has become recently repopularized: Build Back Better. Welcome back and welcome to Politics Corner. 5 episodes ago, we aired our pilot. In that episode, we discussed Joe Biden's budget proposal, Build Back Better. If you haven't listened to that episode, you absolutely should. But, Pallavi, why don't you give our listeners a quick background?
Sure thing. So presidents don't get many chances to advance themselves towards a successful re-election, and Joe Biden's approval ratings are not exactly soaring. So, Joe created a nonsense $6 trillion spending bill titled Build Back Better. Unsurprisingly, our perfectly divided Congress refused to pass the bill, with a supermajority vote in the Senate. So, instead of acknowledging his failed attempt to saddle the American people with absolute terrible financial policy, Joe Biden used a mechanism known as congressional reconciliation, where he would only need a simple majority vote to pass the bill. The legislation bounced back and forth in congressional debates until a final form of $1.75 trillion over a 5-year program was agreed upon. More importantly, this final version stripped the act of financing measures, meaning taxpayers would bear the brunt of financing Joe Biden's "please don't read the fine print" bill.
But, only needing a simple majority, having 50% Democrats in both the House and Senate, and with a pinhead vice president ready to vote yes sirree on the bill, it passed. Or did it? Why don't we ask us?
But in all seriousness, Biden's shrinking popularity is the biggest reason why Democrats have been pushing so hard on Build Back Better. Now, as most of you know, Build Back Better has actually passed, which hopefully, we'll cover more in depth soon. But this really was, predictable, and it does not change how we feel about it.
Okay, so 5 episodes ago, we sort of jumped the gun. We told you that Build Back Better passed, even though it technically didn't, because at the time, the distinction seemed unimportant. In reality, the bill had only passed the House, but we figured it was only a matter of time until the leading Democrat adversary, Senator Joe Manchin, bent to pressure and moved the bill along to the office of the vice president, where Kamala Harris would readily ratify it. But despite backlash, Senator Joe Manchin still refuses to rubber stamp this bill, leading us to the latest chapter in the diary of Build Back Better.
It's really hard to discuss Joe Manchin's objections to Build Back Better without discussing the economic implications of the bill. So first, let's do that. Build Back Better is primarily financed by debt, not taxes, at least not directly by taxes. On its own, that wouldn't be an issue, except you have to consider the current state of U.S. debt, which is at $23.3 trillion at the moment. That number is as huge as it sounds. Here's the infographics show to explain why the U.S. always seems to be in the red.
For a government to start paying back its debt, it will need to spend less than it earns or receives in taxation and run on a budget surplus. Seems simple enough, but the problem is that society becomes accustomed to the level of government spending, especially if they directly benefit from it. Nobody wants to give up what they already have, and nobody wants to pay more taxes. Society in general wouldn't wish to see a cut in spending on healthcare, schools, and other essential services. Cutting back on spending leads to less votes and a loss of power to the next politician who promises more spending. This is how the problem escalates. The more the debt grows, the more is spent on interest repayments and less is allocated to what the government should really be doing with taxpayers' money, investing in local public services. Over time, governments risk running into bankruptcy and seeing their economy collapsing.
The United States manages debt by issuing treasury bonds. It's not too different from you taking out a normal loan at the bank. You get the money you need for now, but you'll have to pay it back eventually. More importantly, in the meantime, you're going to be paying interest on that initial amount. The further the U.S. plunges into debt, the less our taxes are spent on us, and the more money they are spending on just paying interest. It's the worst of both worlds. We aren't getting the government services we want, nor are we making a dent in our overwhelming debt.
Even then, paying for a bill with debt is sometimes justified. The distinction is, the bill has to eventually generate more revenue than it costs. It's like an investment. It's okay to borrow money if you're going to use it to, say, start a business that will eventually pay that money back and more, but it's inadvisable to borrow money and spend it on a chandelier or something else that has no chance of returning revenue to you. Build Back Better has no direct mechanism to return money to the government, so at least on the surface, it's a one-way monetary transaction.
However, some people argue that Build Back Better will stimulate our economy, thereby bringing the federal government more in tax revenue. Yeah, Build Back Better is not a legislation framed around economic development. Biden himself said the bill is intended to, quote, reduce costs for everyday Americans. This is simply government sponsorship. While initially people may appreciate their tax cuts and unemployment benefits, they might not be as appreciative when the inflation associated with Build Back Better strains their wallets. Ultimately, individuals will find that while they have more money, they're actually able to buy less. This is what economists refer to as reduction in purchase power.
With these theories backed up by the Congressional Budget Office, Manchin went on Fox News to make a major surprise announcement.
When you have these things coming at you the way they are right now, I've always said this, Brett, if I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. And I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You're done. This is a no.
This is a no.
Now, Manchin's statement was quickly picked up by conservative news outlets as a saving grace. The Daily Wire stated, quote, over the weekend, Joe Biden's dreams died, so you have to get out the world's tiniest violin for the world's most feeble president.
The statement came with about a half hour's notice to the White House, who attempted to talk Manchin out of the interview. However, when they failed, the world got to see Jen Psaki's visceral, devolving, and frankly hilarious reaction. But I don't think anyone can tell this story better than Ben Shapiro.
Okay, bottom line is that the entire White House is very upset. So Jen Psaki came out and slammed Senator Manchin, accusing Joe Manchin of betrayal. If his comments on Fox had written a statement indicating ends to that effort, they represent a sudden and inexplicable reversal in his position and a breach of his commitments to the president and the senator's colleagues in the House and Senate. By the way, this signals that the White House knows it's over. Because if the White House really thought there was a path forward for negotiation, here's what you don't do. Set Joe Manchin on fire. Right? If you're Joe Biden and you want to negotiate with that guy, you cannot douse him in gasoline and light a match. And yet that's what the White House is doing.
All right, well, now that we've armed ourselves with reality, it's time for a fan favorite. Propaganda paralysis.
Propaganda paralysis.
Welcome to Propaganda Paralysis, where we subject ourselves to the most nonsense partisan poppycock for your entertainment.
This week, Congress progressives smear Manchin for remaining opposed to Build Back Better.
Roll the clip.
We cannot allow one lone senator from West Virginia to obstruct the president's agenda, to obstruct the people's agenda. Jake, all I want for Christmas is a senator that has compassion for the American people and not contempt.
Alrighty, that was Representative Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts. First off, one lone senator is not halting this agenda. 51 senators are. Your caucus just never had a chance to bully any of the other 50 into submission.
Secondly, I don't know where you get off thinking that taking a stand against gimmicky inflationary policy is contemptful of Americans, especially when his opposition came from bipartisan research and constituent requests. Now, I wish that could be the end of this torturous segment, but Bernie Sanders combed out his sideburns and lived up to his initials, BS, to throw in his 2 cents. Let's take a listen.
I hope that we will bring a strong bill to the floor of the Senate as soon as we can and let Mr. Manchin explain to the people of West Virginia why he doesn't have the guts to stand up to powerful special interests. If he doesn't have the courage to do the right thing for the working families of West Virginia and America, let him vote no in front of the whole world.
But all right, Bernie, here's the thing. He does have courage to stand up to special interests and to do the right thing for working families. That's why he's voting no.
I think the fact that his support is soaring in West Virginia can testify that there's really no need for him to explain why he's obeying the wishes of his constituents over the wishes of the far-left Senate faction. But most ridiculously of all of this, Democrats are now trying to oust Manchin from the party, which really just proves how much of a clown show they've become. Don't you dare listen to your constituents. Don't you dare listen to common sense. Don't you dare listen to the Congressional Budget Office. Don't you dare listen to anything besides our narrative.
Senator Mitch McConnell openly welcomed Manchin to the Republican Party, offering him a seat on the GOP caucus last week.
I mean, personally, I think it'd be fantastic if Manchin switched to the GOP caucus, but I really hope, at least in the context of re-election, that he doesn't run on a GOP ticket, because then he's going to be just like any other West Virginia Senate candidate. I think it'll be much more beneficial if he runs as an independent and just caucuses with the GOP. But keep in mind, guys, Joe Manchin is not a senator with like wavering constituent support. In fact, despite what Bernie Sanders woke up from hibernation to tell CNN, Manchin's decision to reject Build Back Better came from both political awareness but also direct constituent requests.
Manchin has a strong voter base. He was a governor twice, and he's the only Democrat in his state's delegation. I think running as an independent would yield even better results for him than it did for Bernie Sanders a few years ago.
Yeah, not to mention he would still be opposed to any nonsense legislation laid from either side of the aisle. So he's playing this rather precarious situation where he's essentially the legislative gatekeeper for the rest of the congressional term.
So what did we learn today? The new left loves to polarize politics, does not appreciate contradictions, and expects total submissions within their caucus even when they are being absolutely ridiculous.
Now, typically, this is when we would tell you to contact your congresspeople, sign up to vote, and, all that. But it's pretty much futile right now because there's nothing you can really do anymore. In all honesty, there's nothing anyone really needs to do because the Democrats are going to put this up for a vote. Manchin is probably going to vote no. And he's ultimately going to be the decider of whether this passes or fails.
Yeah, we're being cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic. We hope Manchin sticks to his statement, but we know how politics plays out typically. But now that this bill is like 90% dead, I think it's time for everyone to just sit back, grab a bowl of popcorn, and enjoy the show.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of Politics Corner.
If you want to get involved in politics, but you don't know where to start or who to trust, then Politics Corner is great for you. We are a free podcast that gives you bite-sized crash courses in modern-day politics, how government affects you, and how to get involved.
We pride ourselves on making every episode unbiased with a moderate approach, regardless of our political affiliations.
If you want to hear more from us and know whenever we release an episode, follow us on Instagram @PoliticsCornerOfficial and make sure that you turn on notifications.
I'm Pallavi Sharma.
And I'm Ishaan Prasad. And thank you for listening to Politics Corner.